whole nation back.
From here in the CNN War Room, tonight's focus, the hunt for Osama bin Laden. Until then, thanks very much for watching. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. CNN's coverage of America's new war continues with Lou Dobbs' Moneyline. That begins right now.
This is Lou Dobbs' Moneyline for Wednesday, November 28th. Here now, Lou Dobbs.
Good evening, everyone. The United States continues to strike at the Taliban and al-Qaeda network in Afghanistan. U.S. warplanes bombing leadership targets. More U.S. forces have arrived in Afghanistan, and the first American has died in combat in Afghanistan. We'll have those stories for you and a live report from Afghanistan. We'll also be going live to Bonn, Germany. Talks there to form a post-Taliban government continuing, but they are facing new problems in reaching a conclusion. Then a sobering assessment of Osama bin Laden and nuclear weapons. Bin Laden may not have a nuclear bomb, but what he does have may be equally disturbing. We'll have that report for you. And also tonight, Enron, once an energy success, now its future in doubt. Its stock nearly worthless tonight, and its multi-billion-dollar merger deal with Dynegy is off. We'll tell you what happened to Enron and what it means. The collapse of the Enron-Dynegy deal reverberated through Wall Street today. Stock prices sharply lower. Turning now to the latest developments in the war against the Taliban and al-Qaeda terrorists, a CIA officer has been killed during the prison uprising near Mazar-e-Sharif. Johnny Spann was gathering intelligence from Taliban prisoners when he was killed. His is the first U.S. combat-related death in Afghanistan. The Pentagon says pressure is building against the Taliban and al-Qaeda, and that troops are becoming increasingly disorganized. Yesterday, U.S. fighter jets hit a Taliban complex near Kandahar. That complex was believed to house Taliban leaders. Two of the largest Afghan delegations at a conference near Bonn, Germany, have agreed to a transitional council. It would oversee setting up an interim government. But differences remain over who would make up a security force to oversee Kabul. U.S. officials tell CNN that speculation about taking the war against terrorism to Iraq is premature. Officials say the focus remains on Afghanistan and will remain there for some time to come. Meanwhile, British and American aircraft monitoring Iraq's southern no-fly zone today struck a command and control system. The U.S. Central Command says it was in response to hostile Iraqi threats against coalition aircraft. A top Taliban official denies that U.S. airstrikes hit a Taliban leadership compound and says their spiritual leader, Mullah Muhammad Omar, remains alive and safe. For more now on this and the fighting in Afghanistan, Christiane Amanpour in Kabul. Christiane?
Lou, indeed, the top Taliban official is the representative to Pakistan. It's not clear whether this is confirmed, and of course we don't have a way of independently confirming this, but he has said, after the US said it bombed a leadership compound, that Taliban leader Mullah Omar was, quote, safe and sound, and that indeed a leadership compound was not hit. Again, we cannot confirm these claims. He also said that Osama bin Laden was not anymore under Taliban control, in other words, not in any territory under Taliban control. This conflicts with what people here in Kabul, the government, the Northern Alliance here in Kabul, believes that Osama bin Laden must be somewhere in the territory that is still controlled by the Taliban, that shrinking territory, and they believe it is around the Kandahar region. Now, at the same time, the United States beefed up the number of U.S. Marines in the Kandahar region. We're told there's some 800 U.S. Marines on the ground there now, and also continued airstrikes around the region there in Kandahar. We're told that the focus of the last couple of days of air raids have been on leadership and command and control, and the chain of command targets for the Taliban and the al-Qaeda network. In the meantime, at Spin Boldak, which is a key Taliban-controlled town on the border with Pakistan, there has been a couple of days of wrangling there, as the Taliban has apparently offered to surrender, but there is an argument between two Pashtun tribal groups there over who will take control of the area once the Taliban does surrender. So that is the situation in the south of Afghanistan at the moment as the hunt goes on for Taliban and al-Qaeda leadership targets. Lou?
Christiane, tonight we really have no better sense of where Osama bin Laden may be hiding than at any time previous in this conflict, right?
Yes, I mean, for us, it's been a matter of speculation. You know, we hear these eyewitness accounts sometimes throughout this conflict that he's been seen here or he's been seen there, but it's very, very difficult. And of course, as you know, there are no journalists allowed in the Kandahar region, either with the Taliban or indeed with the US forces. There's a very small pool report of journalists there, but it's very hard to get a good grip on what's going on. And of course, in these situations, the world's most hunted man, it's pretty difficult to get a grip on exactly where he may be. But of course, the US and the others have extremely sensitive technology, heat-seeking technology, and all the rest of it, so they would have the best way of knowing.
Okay. Christiane Amanpour from Kabul, thank you. More U.S. troops are on the ground in Afghanistan tonight. The 10th Mountain Division, a quick reaction force, has been moved to an airfield near Mazar-e-Sharif. Jamie McIntyre at the Pentagon with more on the story. Jamie?
Well, Lou, today the Pentagon released some videotape showing the strikes yesterday that were precipitated by an intelligence report that indicated senior Taliban leaders, including perhaps Mohammed Omar, were at a complex southeast of Kandahar. Video from a U.S. Air Force F-16 shows a shower of satellite-guided 2,000-pound bombs dropped from a single B-1 bomber destroying a compound southeast of Kandahar. But by morning after this morning, Taliban officials were insisting that Omar was safe in Kandahar. The Pentagon says, nevertheless, it will continue to keep the pressure on leadership targets.
If we break the leadership of the Taliban and break the leadership of al-Qaeda, there is reduced emphasis or reduced motivation for troops to stay loyal to the cause and continue to fight. There will always be pockets who are going to fight to the death in any case. But getting the key leadership and breaking the chain of command is going to render much of that ineffective. And so therefore the pressure is on that leadership.
Meanwhile, the Marines continue to bring in some troops and equipment southwest of Kandahar, and the U.S. is flying more than 100 combat missions a day, although many, if not most, of the planes have to return to base without dropping their bombs, an indication that good targets are being harder to find. And as you mentioned, Lou, the U.S. is increasing its presence of ground troops on the ground, but just modestly. The United States has moved a handful of soldiers from the 10th Mountain Division from Uzbekistan to the airport at Mazar-e-Sharif. Pentagon sources say that 24 or so soldiers will provide security at the airfield while the U.S. presses other countries to pick up the pace of humanitarian relief. Lou?
Jamie, turning to the strike against the leadership compound last night, the story which you broke here on CNN last evening, is it simply that we have to wait for confirmation of by ground forces there, and how close are U.S. military forces on the ground to the leadership compound that was struck?
Well, they're not going to be sending any troops in to inspect that facility. They'll be relying on other means of intelligence to figure out exactly what happened there. You know, the intelligence that they had that indicated Mullah Omar might possibly be there was never anything that firm. They said today that they always hoped that he would be there. They didn't necessarily assume he would be there, and they'll just continue to hit leadership targets. If he's in fact killed in one of these airstrikes, the U.S. expects to find out through a variety of sources on the ground through their regular intelligence network.
Okay, Jamie, thank you very much. Jamie McIntyre, military affairs correspondent tonight from the Pentagon. Talks on forming a new government in Afghanistan reportedly are going well. But today, an indication of the challenges that face those negotiating a post-Taliban government. The Northern Alliance doesn't want to use an outside multinational security force. Instead, they want their own troops to do the job. Jim Bitterman is in Bonn, Germany, where those talks are being held, and brings us up to date now. Jim?
Lou, there was a small breakthrough today at the talks here. The two largest delegations, the Northern Alliance and the supporters of the former king, agreed on a method for getting government going again in Afghanistan. What they've decided is to set up a transitional council of about 120 to 200 prominent Afghans who would sit on this council and then eventually choose an interim government. They've already got a joint commission going, taking a look at who should be on the council, and they hope to have the names of that council decided before they leave the conference site here in the next day or two. But there's a hang-up, and that's the hang-up you mentioned, and that's security. Basically, the supporters of the former king say that since the Northern Alliance control Kabul, that would not be a place where the transitional council could sit in safety, and so they are thinking that an international force should be brought in to provide some kind of a neutral zone for the Transitional Council to meet in. The Northern Alliance, on the other hand, at a news conference earlier in the day, said that was totally unnecessary. Here's the way they put it.
We don't feel the need for outside peacekeeping force, and at the moment there is full security in place. If there is need for extra security, then of course we can have combined forces from the ethnic groups inside Afghanistan.
So for the moment, Lou, it looks like they're going to put off that security issue. It looks like it could be a divisive one. Lou?
And Jim, the role of the United Nations here, is the United Nations strongly suggesting a role for UN troops within certainly Kabul?
Mm-hmm. What they're talking about actually is an international peace force. They'd rather not have the UN blue helmets trying to do this one. They'd like to have some kind of multinational force of the sort that's been set up in Kosovo, a heavily armed force, different governments involved, that sort of thing, real armies in there. Which would patrol the streets. That's what the UN's pressing for. They say that an all-Afghan force might be a little premature. Trying to get something that represent all the ethnic groups of Afghanistan together in one military force might be a little tricky right now.
A likely role, Jim, for Russian and U.S. troops?
Well, it could be Russian, U.S. I think they're thinking also of some Muslim troops, perhaps Turkey and Jordan, countries that have already stepped forward and volunteered. So I think that they try to make it as Islamic as possible in order to calm the fears there might be in Afghanistan. Lou?
Okay, Jim. Thank you very much. Jim Bitterman reporting from Bonn. Thank you. Hundreds of people are being detained by the United States government as part of its investigation of terrorism. Critics say the Bush administration is overstepping its legal bounds, but officials say the tactics are necessary to stop terrorism. Eileen O'Connor joins us now from Washington with more. Eileen?
Well, Lou, there are 104 people in total that have been charged with federal offenses. Now, the charges run a full gambit, but few seem to show direct involvement in the conspiracy to commit the attacks of September 11th. Some are charged with making false statements to a grand jury, others for the unlawful production of identification documents, others are being held on credit card fraud, some on passport and visa fraud. About 20 people were charged with obtaining fraudulent hazmat licenses. Now, that happened in Pennsylvania, but it appears to have happened well before the attacks, despite concerns that al-Qaeda was planning to use trucks of hazardous materials to stage some kind of attack. These men, though, do not seem related. Still, there was a plan for them to get these hazmat trucking licenses without the proper training or documents. Now, in addition, you have some who have appeared in court, like Luis Martinez Flores and 3 other Salvadorans who helped some of the hijackers here obtain Virginia driver's licenses. But this looks like a scam that the Salvadorians at least engaged in with a lot of people, hanging out at the Department of Motor Vehicles and offering to vouch for people's residency in exchange for money. Then there are people like the man you see here, Osama Adwala, accused of lying to a grand jury. Adwala is a student, a permanent U.S. resident. He lived in San Diego. He's a student who police say knew 2 of the hijackers while they were in San Diego. And they say Adwala lied to investigators about knowing those hijackers. A judge now says there's no real evidence linking him to the activities of the hijackers relating to September 11th, so he's going to be released on bond. But there are some who have been caught in this dragnet who may be more ominous. One man in New York is held on illegal possession of firearms, but he also, according to affidavits filed, took pictures of the World Trade Center before the attack and also had a handheld global positioning satellite and showed some interest in nuclear facilities. Now, all of the people being held under these visa violations, as you mentioned at the beginning, and these arrests on seemingly unrelated charges, remind some legal experts of the way the Justice Department once got some major crime figures, organized crime figures, not through murder charges, but through charges like tax evasion. And you know, you have the Attorney General yesterday saying we are going to use everything we have at our disposal within the criminal justice system to hold those we suspect of any involvement or even unwittingly helping the hijackers. Lou?
Eileen, these critics right now of some of these tactics being employed, is there any sign that John Ashcroft, the president, this administration, are in any way considering changing approach?
No, they aren't, although some people said that the release of a lot of this information, the documents, the charging documents, we had about 40 of those documents, but a lot of them were given to us today by the Justice Department, and at least releasing the countries, not the names of those detained under INS violations, all of that information. A lot of people think that that is in part in answer to the critics. So while they're not really changing the way they're doing business, they're at least being a little bit more transparent about what is going on. And the Attorney General, you know, yesterday came really out with no apologies to anyone about what he's doing. He said this is a time of war, and any information that they are withholding is because, he says, this is a country at war. Lou?
And Eileen, an extraordinary development. William Webster, including William Webster, a former director of the FBI, criticizing some of the FBI tactics here, which, if nothing else, have been effective to this point because we haven't had another incident since the 11th. What is the reaction at the Justice Department to that sort of criticism, if you will, from brothers in war here?
Well, you know, they're saying, and the FBI director, Robert Mueller, says, look, he felt that, you know, this is now a new world. And as you've heard the Attorney General as well say, the mission now of the FBI is to prevent terrorism. And what they have been very good at doing is investigating things after the fact. So, and what the critics are saying is that they're trying to rebuild the FBI. And I think you'll hear Robert Mueller saying, yes, you're right, we are trying to rebuild the FBI because we think that the mission is having to shift post-September 11th to one very much of prevention, not just investigation after the fact. Lou?
And the FBI director has a lot of evidence on his side as well as support. Eileen O'Connor, thank you very much for bringing us up to date. Does Osama bin Laden have a nuclear weapon? A special House task force on non-proliferation received a sobering assessment today. Osama bin Laden may not yet have a nuclear bomb, but what he does have could be devastating. Steve Young has the report. Steve?
That's exactly right, Lou. The former CIA director's judgment is that Osama bin Laden probably doesn't yet have the bomb, but he almost certainly has some of the piece parts, at least for a dirty bomb. Late this afternoon, James Woolsey told a bipartisan group of congressmen a lot of attention has properly been paid to nuclear materials getting into al-Qaeda's hands from Russia.
There has to be said to be some possibility that a few kilograms of plutonium or highly enriched uranium in one way or another through organized crime circles into terrorist circles have made their way into al-Qaeda's hands.
He doesn't believe bin Laden has an atomic bomb that would leave a mushroom cloud, but he thinks the terrorists could combine radioactive materials with conventional explosives. That's the makings of a so-called dirty bomb that could shower a wide population and cause tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of excess cancers. Britain's Defense Minister Jeff Hoon, by the way, recently said he's reached the same conclusion. He told the BBC bin Laden is a man with no scruples, no morality, no reservations about killing civilians to achieve his perverted ends, unquote. Woolsey says he believes the greatest potential source of radioactive materials for al-Qaeda today is Pakistan, which is widely believed to have the makings of up to 45 medium-yield bombs. Let's put that in perspective. The 1993 World Trade Center terrorist attack wreaked its devastation with just 1,200 pounds of explosives. Even a crude small nuclear bomb would be at least 1,000 times more powerful. And a medium-yield bomb would be far more powerful than the bomb the U.S. dropped on Hiroshima. Woolsey says Islamabad's bombs are kept in component parts that Pakistani fanatics might collaborate with al-Qaeda, but it would be hard to put the parts together in an Afghan cave. Of course, Osama bin Laden has been talking about obtaining a nuclear weapon since 1993. Al-Qaeda has cells in 60 countries, so an Afghan cave wouldn't necessarily have to be the assembly point. Woolsey also said the Bush administration should make available American vaults, sensors, tamper-proof seals to identify, track, and secure Islamabad's nuclear materials, and he thinks the U.S. has to target Iraqi state support of terrorism early in the new year. Lou?
And what is the likelihood that Pakistan will accept those preventative measures?
Certainly some resistance. Interesting, too, in what Woolsey said. He says, go after Iraq, but not Iran. Interestingly, he says, half the population of that country is now 21 years old or younger.
That country being?
Iran. And that the students are cheering the United States now for the boldness it took starting in October, and because the mullahs hate the U.S.
Okay. Steve Young, thank you very much. Well, still ahead here, progress has been made on an economic stimulus package. We'll tell you who's given ground and what it could mean for you. We'll also hear from the National Commander of the Salvation Army on charitable giving in the wake of September 11th and now the holiday season. Then what might be the biggest corporate collapse in history. We'll report on the rise and the very sudden, dramatic fall of Enron. Next.
Closed captioning for this program has been provided by Verizon Communications.
You're watching Lou Dobbs Moneyline. Next, tackle the tough issues on Wolf Blitzer Reports, followed by Crossfire, only on CNN.
Drive a nearly new car and save thousands off a new list price, only at Gresham Ford. 65 of our own B rentals plus 240 others on sale now. That's GreshamFord.com, where we rent cars and trucks for $19 per day.
Take glorious colors, exquisite designs, and thousands from which to choose, and you'll have a holiday rug event from Northwest Rugs fit for the season and all at reduced prices. Choose from a special assortment of rugs from around the world, in sizes from accent to room to runners to squares. No matter what rug is on your holiday list, the experts from Northwest Rugs will be delighted to help find it. Northwest Rugs, once-a-year holiday sale, Wilsonville, Tigard, Tannisbourne, and Jansen Beach.
Own this 2000 Ford Ranger four-door for $7,000 off a new list, plus over 300 pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs priced to go. All credit applications will be accepted. Drive a nearly new car and save thousands off a new list price, only at Gresham Ford.
This is CNN.
Enron, the once mighty energy company, is on the verge of bankruptcy tonight. Dynegy pulled out of a proposed deal to buy the company. Enron stock today plummeted, dropping 85% after its last hope, its credit rating, was cut. Cut, in fact, to junk status. More than 180 million shares today were traded, making it the most actively traded stock ever on the New York Stock Exchange. The dramatic decline, the speed of Enron's decline, simply stunning. Shares traded at more than $80 a year ago. Tonight, 61 cents a share. $62 billion of shareholder value wiped out. Enron's spectacular flameout is unprecedented in business. Casey Wyan has more on the story now from Enron's hometown, Houston, Texas.
The fatal blow to Enron's efforts to salvage its merger with Dynegy came early Wednesday when Standard & Poor's downgraded Enron's debt to junk status. That triggered a clause in the original $9 billion deal that allowed Dynegy to walk away, a move the company says it made to protect the interest of shareholders. The downgrade and subsequent collapse of Enron's stock likely makes bankruptcy the company's best option.
I think it pretty much seals the fate of Enron in the sense that a bankruptcy filing will be shortcoming very quickly in the offing here.
Why is that?
Basically because it's going to hamper Enron's trading abilities to such an extent that they're not going to be able to enter into even the shortest term type of trades and agreements with counterparties.
Enron employees say they expect a bankruptcy filing soon, though the company would not comment. This woman photographed Enron's headquarters, saying she wanted to preserve her memories. Layoffs are expected, especially in the company's trading operations. Some were suspended Wednesday because market participants wanted to avoid dealing with Enron because of its deteriorating financial condition. As for Dynegy, Chairman Chuck Watson says the company tried hard to salvage the deal, but in his words, sometimes the company's best deals are the ones it does not do. Watson also says you just have to know when to say no. And Lou, today Dynegy said no.
Was it, in point of fact, the downgrade in the rating of Enron's bonds that led to the decision? Was it that simple?
Absolutely. That's what got the ball rolling. It wasn't as direct as that, but when the downgrade happened, it triggered several other clauses within the original $9 billion buyout deal that allowed Dynegy to back out. Now, of course, Enron says it's still studying Dynegy's decision to pull out of that deal, so this could be one for the lawyers, and if in fact Enron does end up in bankruptcy court, it's definitely going to be one for the lawyers, Lou.
Yeah, it seems like this is going to be a halcyon period for lawyers, irrespective of the course this takes. Dynegy has some exposure as well to Enron. How significant?
Not very much, according to the company. On its conference call with analysts and reporters today, they said that their exposure is limited to about $75 million, and they've taken steps over the past several weeks to limit that exposure. They took further steps today, suspending their dealings with Enron's trading operations.
Turning to the anticipatory, I hope it's anticipatory rather than simply speculative, but the likely fate of the employees of Enron in this situation.
Hard to tell, and employees within the company that we spoke with said that there are a lot of rumors swirling around. Of course, there's the expectations that there are going to be layoffs. There have been layoffs over the past several days, and some employees said that those were continuing today. Others said, though, that they heard that layoffs have been halted in anticipation of a likely bankruptcy filing, Lou.
Okay. Casey, thank you very much. Casey Wyan reporting live from Houston, Texas. Coming up next here, the United States sends more troops into Afghanistan. We'll have the latest developments on the war for you. Then the incredible story of a family who tried to cash in on a national tragedy, claiming that the wife died in the collapse of the World Trade Center. Also tonight, we'll be joined by the National Commander of the Salvation Army on the impact September 11th has had on charitable donations in this holiday season. All of that, a lot more, still ahead. Stay with us.
I'd like to take a look at my investments.
Can Fidelity help me with some planning? Go through what I'm invested in, goals and so forth?
Of course. You know, now might be a good time to look at your entire portfolio.
Yeah? You can help?
Well, certainly. With Fidelity Portfolio Review, we can help you draw a complete picture.
Really?
Sure. Fidelity and non-Fidelity accounts, IRAs, 401ks, stocks, mutual funds, even the effects of taxes.
How do we start?
We'll meet in person or over the phone.
That's great. Let's get rolling.
For a free review of your portfolio, call 1-800-FIDELITY.
We live one block from the World Trade Center. When the second plane hit, I grabbed my daughter, covered her face, and we ran. My wife and son were a couple of blocks away going through the same thing. For weeks, I couldn't talk about it. The Red Cross helped my family and they helped me. When I felt so alone, so despairing, they took the time to listen. They gave me that human touch. I will never forget them.
Thank you, America, for helping Pascal Denoya.
Handle more. Carry less. The Samsung i300 palm-powered phone. Don't be weighed down. Speak up. Hello. 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 This is the mobile world of Samsung, and everyone's invited.
This is a complete broadband solution with a nitro-powered on switch. This is igniting your mission-critical applications on the fattest optical IP pipe on the planet. This is your business, screaming 1,000 times faster than yesterday. This is moving beyond connected. This is riding the light. This is the technology that makes it happen. Quest, ride the light.
How close is the U.S. military to nabbing Osama bin Laden? Tracking down a terrorist in Wolf Blitzer's war room. Then, now that we're officially in a recession, join the debate on who's to blame in the Crossfire, beginning at 7 Eastern on CNN tonight.
Now the latest developments in the war against terrorism in Afghanistan. The Pentagon saying the leadership of the Taliban and al-Qaeda, that leadership has been isolated, according to the Pentagon. Yesterday, U.S. warplanes dropped about 10 bombs on a Taliban complex near Kandahar that was believed to be housing Taliban leaders. The father of a CIA officer killed in Afghanistan says his son joined the CIA because he thought it could make the world a better place. 32-year-old Johnny Michael Spahn was killed during a Taliban prisoner uprising near Mazar-e-Sharif earlier this week. Spain's prime minister is downplaying suggestions of a rift between the United States and Spain over the extradition of suspected terrorists. Prime Minister Jose Maria Aznar says his country would consider any such extradition request. Aznar expressed full cooperation with the United States in the war against terrorism during a meeting with President Bush today. Talks on Afghanistan's political future making some progress during a meeting near Bonn today. Two large Afghan coalition members agreed to a transitional council which would oversee setting up an interim government. Differences remain about the makeup of a security force in Kabul. The Bush administration has reached a deal to expand its stockpile of smallpox vaccine for the government. The deal with Canvas and Baxter International, valued at $428 million, it will provide an additional 155 million doses of smallpox vaccine by the end of next year. That would give the government an expected 286 million doses of the vaccine, that enough to cover the entire population of the United States. In after-hours trading, Canvas rising almost $4 a share on top of a more than $4 gain in regular trading on Wall Street. Baxter up almost $1 then after the bell, building on a fractional gain during the regular session. There has been a breakthrough on the economic stimulus plan. As we speak, Senate Democrats and Republicans, along with a representative from the administration, that's all three parties, about to sit down and try to work out a deal. The face-to-face talks follow compromises from both sides, as compromises are wont to do. Tim O'Brien joins us from Capitol Hill and has the story for us. Tim?
Lou, you'll recall just 24 hours ago, Senate Democrats were insisting that any stimulus package include $15 billion for Homeland Security. Senate Republicans balked, so did the White House. Well, this morning, after a breakfast meeting at the White House, Senate Democratic leader Tom Daschle relented. The Democrats are willing to cut the amount of money in half, from $15 billion to $7.5 billion. But more important, they're taking it off the table for now, out of the stimulus package debate.
We have decided to offer the Homeland Security package in part as an amendment to the Defense Appropriations Bill next week when the bill comes to the Senate. We are also going to do something else to make it even more acceptable to our Republican colleagues. We're going to cut the $15 billion in half.
Yesterday, it was the Republicans making concessions. They still want to repeal the alternative minimum tax, but they've agreed not to make that repeal retroactive, an idea many Democrats just hated. They're also suggesting a payroll tax holiday. No Social Security taxes for businesses or individuals for the month of December. It could also, or either or, December or January, and that could help low and middle income taxpayers, upper income taxpayers in January. It appeals to Democrats and President Bush. Well, he sidestepped questions this morning about the payroll tax holiday, but he did say this.
Here's what I support. I support the Senate coming together and getting a bill moving as quickly as possible so that we can get it to conference and get the differences resolved. The Senate must pass a stimulus package.
Lou, there's still a great deal of work that needs to be done. Whatever the Senate comes up with must be reconciled with a very partisan House bill. But tonight's meetings are progress, and they greatly enhance the probability that President Bush will get what he wants, a stimulus package for Christmas.
What he wants, Tim, and what the country needs. This is a major breakthrough. The Republicans are willing to relent on that retroactive corporate AMT. That was an idea that whose time simply had not come.
No, and there's a great deal of support for it, but not at this time. There's a lot of question as to whether it was really a stimulative. The fact is, both the House measure and the Senate measure, the original Senate bill, were very partisan. Democrats, they control the Senate. They were not listening to Republicans, and you had the same situation in the House where the Republicans are in control. Now they are coming together, and there is a real chance that they can work this out.
That is terrific news. Tim, thanks very much for bringing it to us. Tim O'Brien from Washington. Millions of dollars of U.S. grain and food are on their way to Cuba over the next few weeks. Despite the economic embargo, companies are selling food to Cuba to help it recover from Hurricane Michelle. These sales are the first of their kind in 4 decades. Kitty Pilgrim has the story.
Havana, Cuba. The hardline government doesn't change its mind quickly, but it has just made an exception to its vehement statement that it will never buy U.S. food or agriculture under current U.S. restrictions. In recent weeks, Hurricane Michelle devastated the island, flattening houses, ruining crops, and killing 5 people. Cuba decided to cave.
The fact that it's taken place is significant due to the fact that the Cuban government has said since October of last year that they were not going to buy anything under the provisions of the current law.
Archer Daniels Midland is the first U.S. company since 1962 to have a contract for food exports to Cuba. They are scheduled to ship 20,000 tons of wheat this month. Arkansas-based Riceland Foods will ship 15,000 tons of rice over the next 2 months. Other companies involved, Minneapolis-based Cargill, will ship corn and vegetable oil. In the last year, U.S. agriculture companies lobbied and won legislative changes for U.S. companies to be able to access Cuba's $700 million import market. They can now legally sell crops for cash to Cuba. But Cuba has stubbornly objected to the all-cash terms, demanding credit. So up until now, no deals have been made. Some see this sale, made under humanitarian auspices, to be a significant exception.
So in a sense, everybody is sort of happy. The U.S. companies are happy because now they have access to that market. The pro-embargo people are a little unhappy that the embargo, has a hole in it, but on the other hand, it's not a big hole as long as it requires cash for the sales.
Now, the ultimate question is, where does this leave the embargo? And that appears to be still firmly in place, supported by many, including President Bush, not likely to be changed unless Cuba changes a little bit more than its mind. Lou?
Kitty, thank you very much. Kitty Pilger. Coming up next here, a sell-off on Wall Street for the second session in a row, pressured by a collapsing energy deal and a somber Federal Reserve report on the economy. We'll have that for you. Also, the latest on a couple accused of trying to cash in on the September 11th tragedy. Also, the holiday season is a crucial time for charities. We'll take a look at how those raising money